Terrence, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Good catching back up.
Good.
With
I
you,
know
yeah.
it's been like a week or two.
A couple weeks. Yeah.
Well, I told you I'd be coming down, and then I heard from I don't remember who set this up, but I'm glad you stopped by. We're having a good couple of days. How's it been going?
Everything's good, man. You know, exciting news last week.
Yeah.
You and I talked about it.
Yeah.
You know, and anytime that we can take the next steps and moving forward to legalization, you know, it's baby steps, but nevertheless, it's steps.
And we talked about it specifically as it relates to DC when we talked, but are there specific things about DC that rescheduling would unlock?
Well, I hope so.
I hope so too.
So, you know, we're still, I'm hoping that in October that President Biden will go ahead and put DC in his budget so that we could become adult use or recreational, which will open up the pathway to a lot of things for the district.
Well, you laid out a billion-dollar market, multi-billion-dollar market.
And I did, and I still believe in that because, you know, we're coming up on an election year. So last year we did 22 million. They say you tend to get a 8 to 10, 12% bump during election year when it comes to tourists. So we're probably looking at 24, 25 million people this year that visit the district, which in turns will allow a $1 billion market.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot to be excited about, but on the flip hand, you know, we still got to deal with mass incarceration. The thing is, until we get cannabis legalized, we're going to continue to have to push this fight and push this narrative because it's still, it doesn't help people who are sitting in prison
No,
right now.
not at all. And that does not even help with sort of rescheduling necessarily. And that is a big challenge. And a challenge specific for DC is that you're a market that's quasi-governed by Congress.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, again, you know, you and I talked a couple weeks ago about this, and you know, I'm all about legislation, but I think that we should have term limits.
Yes.
I think that we have a lot of good people who are trying to do civil and public work, but at some point they get outdated. And I think, you know, we have to get more progressive minds in to understand what society looks like, legislation should look like.
Yeah, even as much as get some of those people back to their districts with legal cannabis. Because
Yes.
I think that only people who've been in, you know, people in, some legislators in Colorado, some in California, you know, some in New York, like some of it is age, honestly.
Yes.
And they just are not in tune with what is going on in legal markets even.
Well, I think a lot of people understand it, but they're in denial because the stitch and stigma of cannabis, which we talked about before. And when you have the stitch and stigma of cannabis and you're talking to 60 and 70-year-old legislators who can't relate with 19 and 20-year-olds, that's where the gap is.
Yeah. But even in as much as the Virginia governor, he's not that old, and the Florida governor too.
The problem is that this whole woke culture, and that people think that you can continue to mass a population. Virginia's absolutely out of their mind. $1.5 billion market. I'm a deal.
Yeah.
Roads, highways, infrastructure, you name it. All types of taxes to subsidize that cannabis was subsidized to help the state. He's not for it. Ron DeSantis is in his own way because Florida is basically recreational.
800,000 patients.
Right,
it's
without
crazy.
him even.
Right.
He doesn't even understand it. When you have a black market like Florida has, it is sad that the legislator and governmentship does not understand
what's going on. Like how far removed they must be.
Well, very removed. I don't even think they're removed. I just think that MSOs have pretty much came in, they lobbied, and they've been successful at that.
Very successful.
To keep cannabis in a municipal state versus a record, and still they're going to make the money.
Yeah. There's 800,000 patients in Florida, which is like twice the size of the biggest medical market anywhere ever.
Think about this. DC has 900,000 people. Florida has
800,000
800,000 patients.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And every license is vertically integrated, and that's
which costs $25-30 million. Yeah. There's no social equity.
Right.
There's no nothing.
There's no small business owners.
No small. Virginia, same way.
Yeah.
So when we keep talking about social equity, and you and I talked about that, and as it relates to the justice piece, or the appropriation piece, or the reciprocity piece,
nothing's there.
These are examples of why I speak and why I continue to push the narrative is, does that even add up?
No.
But majority of your patients are people of color.
Yeah, right.
But they don't have a business. And we own less than 3% of this business,
right?
Or this industry. So it's sad, but nevertheless, this is why I'm here. This is why I continue to do the work and talk about how to propel forward from a legislation standpoint, from an advocacy standpoint, and from an ownership standpoint, because I am an owner in the business.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the industry's lucky to have you, so doing all those things.
That.
Doing all those things, and need more of you. If you could just clone yourself. We talk about clones a lot in cannabis. You can just clone yourself. We'll take a little snippet, and then we'll grow it over here, and then we'll grow over there.
Right.
But let's go back to local, and let's call it the DMV, like the market in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, because it'll be the southernmost, DC may be the southernmost, market there is right now. Recreational, quasi-recreational market in Maryland too. Talk about that, because it seems to me like the country is broken down into some regions. The Northeast is seeping down.
Right.
Florida is ascendant, so there'll be fewer and fewer states that in between that. West is moving east, with the exception of Texas, and the Midwest is growing every year. So like we're looking at these more and more states coming online, and like how do you take a look at that and say, how do we get more minority owners in there? How do we get a more equal industry?
First of all, we have to get our local and state legislators to buy into social equity. So if you talk about the DMV, Maryland Hogan did a terrible job. Westmore is doing a phenomenal job at social equity, right? I think Pennsylvania is doing a great job at it. New Jersey, the jury's still out.
Yep.
New York, I think they will, but New York's biggest problem is the black market, the illicit market. But when you go south, once you get to Virginia, you jump down to Georgia, which I think that rescheduling cannabis is going to help Georgia ride its horizon in terms of going from 3% THC to having 4 or 5 shrews to a enormous market, right? I think you got Metro Atlanta, Metro Augusta, Savannah. Those are your progressive cities. And
it's also most of the population.
Exactly. I think that at some point, now that Georgia's going to come online, the biggest fear that I fear, though, is that the FDA is going to patent a lot of cannabis products and then want to get into to let Big Pharma crawl in. So if we can keep things at a state level and let states continue to make the decisions how to deal with their cannabis patients or their recreation patients, I think we got a shot. If we allow the federal government to step in, I think that the FDA is going to allow, at some point, they're going to lobby so hard that just like alcohol, it's going to take over. Yeah.
And we'll continue to watch.
Yeah, we'll continue to watch. And I think the biggest thing is, in any of this propelling forward, as I talked about, is who do we vote in? What are their likes and dislikes when it comes to cannabis?
And their relative age.
And their, exactly. And who are the advocacies that actually they align with?
Right.
Because we can't just go on the Lost Prisoner Project or this or that. It has to be a collective group that come in and confront every legislator from the president down of how to move forward. Until we legalize cannabis, we're not going to stop.
Yeah.
But you think about this, and you know this. It took us 54 years to reschedule.
Right. It's funny. It's just this week though, right? It's like, and then we happen to be at a conference.
Right.
But it does. It's. I think it is not lost. But we work. We work in cannabis every day. But the outside, like, but then I was looking at the news. Like, this was in every news outlet in America. And then you realize, like, we're so close to it, but everybody's paying attention to it now.
Well, not only that, I did an interview for Hearst Media the other day, and the other night I was up midnight. The last 3 minutes of Stephanie Rue, MSNBC, reclassifying.
Yeah.
What is that going to mean to America? Now, it's the last 3 minutes. When it becomes the first 3 minutes,
that's the A block. It's going to be a big
block versus the Z block.
Yeah.
That's when we're going to get
some
traction.
I'll tell you, my prediction is over the next 3-6 months during the presidential election, it's going to come up a lot. It's going to come up a lot. And it's going to come up people speaking for it and against it, but it's going to come up a lot.
Well, we got the 60-day public forum. Schumer has already said that he's going to put the Safer Bank Act in the FAA package, which will get passed in the next 60 days. Once cannabis becomes bankable, every investor, every stock, cannabis stock, is going to go high, right?
Not to mention that the 280E goes away. We talked to a big MSO.
Yeah.
He said dollars for dollars this year, if next year, $50 million back to our bottom line. Like
$50 million.
$50 million.
So, and in DC, it's even crazy. You get 65%, then you tax another 65%.
Right.
So,
or how taxed 130%.
Right. So if you tell somebody that they made $2 million and that it's that they're going to get 65% of that money back to their bottom line, that's huge.
Yeah. It's more for the percentage seems bigger. It's more important to small businesses than big businesses, but for a big business, $50 million, it's that's a lot too.
Right. So
in aggregate, it's billions and billions of dollars.
It's billions and billions of dollars, and what it also is, it takes the cannabis industry to the next level.
Yeah.
Because if I'm bankable, and I have good credit, I got a great balance sheet.
Yeah.
It's the difference between me getting a loan and a line of credit.
Right, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or me getting an investor that wouldn't invest with me before because it wasn't bankable.
Right.
There's a lot of different benefits to this.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to be in the industry. I'm happy to, talk to you and others. And, our fight is not over. And I think a lot of people want to relax. We cannot relax. We cannot.
Not until it's in the A block.
A block to this country says that, like Germany, cannabis is legal. Yeah. Everywhere.
You think we'll get there?
I think that we have to, number one, I think the next progressive president will get us there.
Yeah. That's what happened in Canada.
I honestly believe that if we get a 40 or 50-year-old president, and Schumer's gone, and Schumer's pro-cannabis.
Yeah,
so,
it's just
but if we
he's he's pro institution of the Senate too.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So you're talking about guys who've been there 30 plus years. The reality of it is that it's going to all come up to legislation. But I think that as this country becomes more and more democratic, which it is, right? Every year we see that the popular vote is more democratic than conservative or moderate. Mm-hmm. I really believe that that's going to be where the shoe drops. I suspect in the next 10 years that we can say cannabis can be legalized in this country, which is sad. Because we speak free trade, free will,
free
everything else, but not when it comes to this.
That's right.
And the problem is the other things that come behind it. And from my side, being a returned citizen and someone who's formerly incarcerated, that means that we're going to have to open jail cells to let people out of jail.
Yeah.
That means that the criminal justice system this is a segment that will be crippled from a financial standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint. That's going to hurt not only the federal system, the local systems.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and that's where people are scared.
Yeah.
Because that systematic racism, the Jim Crow that we continue to live in this since the 40s, that's the issue.
It's a lot to reverse.
A whole lot.
Yeah.
A whole lot.
And that's the work.
But as we move forward and think about, this is the first NECANN, what is NECANN in Baltimore going to look like in 5 years?
Yes. We'll take over more halls. Hopefully.
If you go to MJB's and you remember what that was and to what it is today,
yeah.
And I'm 3-4 years in MJB's, it's a
wild.
monster.
Yes. You can't even walk the distance.
You can't walk. You
can't walk not without a break.
Without a break, and 2-3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you stop and you
engage, it's take forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time. Nice talking to you, and hopefully we'll do it again. Maybe every couple of weeks.
Anytime you need me, make sure I get my hat though.
Oh, I'll bring the hat. Thanks so much for stopping by.